Joining me now is Leon Panetta, CIA Director and Defense Secretary in the Obama administration, former White House Chief of Staff for President Clinton. Mr. Secretary, how likely is it that Israel is going to pull back and permit a diplomatic solution in Lebanon, which is what the U.S. is pressing so hard for?
Well, I think that Israel, having done a pretty good job at restoring its deterrence, both with Hezbollah as well as Hamas, and obviously the attack on Iran, that they've now got to recognize that military action alone is not going to resolve this issue, and that they do need to engage in a diplomatic effort. And for that reason, I think it's important for the United States and our allies in that region to continue to work to try to push for some kind of temporary ceasefire, the exchange of hostages that's so critical right now, the humanitarian aid that's also critical for that area, and the ability to kind of at least lay the groundwork for how Gaza ultimately will be governed and secured. That has to happen through diplomacy. It's not going to happen through military action. So I'm hoping that ultimately Israel will agree to some kind of approach to a ceasefire.
And in terms of Gaza, that humanitarian aid is not only not getting in, but the Israeli parliament has just voted new legislation to block the UN agency, the relief agency, from delivering it. And they're the only agency that really has been able to get into the interiors there. Plus, they're attacking again overnight a hospital now with, grievous civilian injuries. As the Jordanian foreign minister said to Secretary Blinken's face on London when I was traveling back with them, Israel doesn't seem to be listening to anyone. Why don't we have more leverage?
Well, the one thing is we can't give up. I give credit to the Secretary of State for his trips. I give credit to the President for continuing to push. Look, we have made a difference there. Believe it or not, I think because the United States' pressure and our relationship and the support we provide, we were successful at getting past ceasefires. We were successful at getting exchanges of hostages. We were successful at having Israel go after military targets in Iran. So I think it is important for the United States to continue to push Israel to move towards some kind of ceasefire. I think ultimately it will happen. It may take some time, but the fact is that it does pay off to put pressure on Israel.
Some people are suggesting that the calls that have been continuous from Donald Trump and to Bibi Netanyahu back and forth, maybe that Netanyahu is just waiting to see if Donald Trump wins before deciding what he's going to do. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's hard not to agree to that because I think Netanyahu will try to look at what the political situation is like in the United States in order to determine his own actions. And therefore, I think there's probably every expectation that Israel will not step forward until we get past the election next Tuesday. It's one of the realities of dealing with the politics of the Middle East, that they do pay attention to what the United States does in terms of electing its leadership.
Do you think that Israel's successful elimination of the Hezbollah leader, the Hamas leader in Iran, what they've done to degrade the air defenses in Iran, has reestablished their deterrence after the disastrous surprise attack on October 7th, where they were completely caught off guard? Do you think that there is a way now that will not escalate into a wider war, that Iran will maybe do something, a token response, but not escalate further?
Yeah, obviously there's always the danger that we'll see an expanded war in that region. But I think as a result of Israel establishing its deterrence, going after Hezbollah's leadership very successfully, going after Hamas's leadership, and then the attack that was made that was limited in responding to Iran's attack. I think this is a moment in time where there is an opportunity for all of the participants in what's happening in the Middle East to recognize that there's a better way out if they can resolve some of the issues, if they can agree to a ceasefire, if they can have a hostage exchange, but most importantly, if they can agree to some kind of diplomatic approach that will deal with the issue of how Palestinians are going to govern themselves in the future. It's ultimately going to be dependent on all of the parties agreeing to that approach that I think will provide a peaceful resolution to what's happening in the Middle East.